The deaths of 3 American soldiers in a Taliban suicide attack last Wednesday lifted the veil on United States military assistance in Pakistan. Well, so began a February 4th piece by Jane Perlitz in the New York Times, but even all these days on, it's been a very discreet unveiling. Lest we forget, U.S. service people are not supposed to be dying in Pakistan. It's not Iraq. It's not Afghanistan. There's no agreement for U.S. combat troops to operate in that country. Until recently, U.S. officials have repeatedly denied having any combat troops in place. This month's killing exposed that reality. So what were the U.S. troops actually doing? What we've learned so far is that soldiers were part of what federal officials now say is a small contingent, a few hundred American soldiers who've been training Pakistan's army for 18 months or more. As the Times puts it, quote, the trainings have been acknowledged only gingerly by both the Americans and the Pakistanis so as not to trespass onto Pakistani sensitivities about sovereignty or further inflame high anti-American sentiment, close quote. Well, for a taste of all that gingerly acknowledging, just take a look at that Times story. In more than 1,000 words, Perlitz's quotes come from roughly a dozen sources, all but 2 of them U.S. officials or Pakistanis now or recently working with the U.S. Embassy. Of 2 non-official sources, one makes the obvious point. Quote, the American soldiers were probably made targets as a result of the drone strikes, said Syed Rifat Hussain, professor of international relations at Islamabad University. Quote, the attack seems a payback for the mounting frequency of drone attacks. Well, it's an obvious point because the Pakistani press and local activists have been making it loudly, a lot, in the press and in the streets. In the same week that Perlitz's piece in the Times appeared, for example, that country's English daily, The News, ran a long editorial on the rapid increase in U.S. drone attacks this year, making the point that roughly 41 civilians have been killed for every alleged al-Qaeda or Taliban target. The Taliban itself are actually rewarding their fighters with new cars when they bring down U.S. drones. Quote, the shooting down of the drone has lifted the morale of our fighters. It's a huge success for the poorly armed Taliban against a powerful army, remarked a senior Taliban commander at a car awarding ceremony recently. Maybe there is future for the car industry, but I digress. Among the Pakistani public, surveys constantly show that they consider the U.S. a greater threat than the Taliban, despite 3,000 plus deaths in terrorist attacks last year. If the drones are controversial, the presence of U.S. soldiers on Pakistani soil is far more so. Perlitz's piece is bylined Islamabad, yet her readers get no whiff of the fury. If we're quietly seeing a shift in the war, don't American readers need to know what might be the implications of that?